Please rise for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemplis.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the City of Perth December 2024 Ordinary Council meeting, which I now formally declare open at 5 p.m. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet, the Whadjuk Noongar people of Western Australia, and pay my respects to elders past and present. It is a privilege to be standing on Whadjuk Noongar land. CEO, can I ask you to recite the prayer, please?
Almighty God, under whose providence we hold responsibility for this city, grant us wisdom to understand its present needs, foresight to anticipate its future growth, and grace to serve our fellow citizens with integrity and selfless devotion. And to thee be all blessing and glory forever. Amen.
Thanks, everybody. Please be seated and make yourselves comfortable. Alrighty, well, Councillor Gobbett, our favourite, Council Policy 1.4. This meeting is being live streamed around the world. Whether you are in Denmark, Dallas, Dubrovnik, Dunedin or Duncraig, you can enjoy the City of Perth Council meeting as it happens in real time. How magnificent that is. And hello to all of those people in all of those various destinations that are watching, who've let me know that they do. Thank you. Let's go through the attendance. In attendance tonight, we have the Lord Mayor, that's me, Deputy Lord Mayor Bruce Reynolds, Councillor Clyde Bevan, Councillor Raj Doshi, Councillor David Gonsalves, Councillor Liam Gobbett. Councillor Victor Coe is absent at the present time, but I don't believe we've been notified. Okay. Councillor Catherine Leeser and Councillor Steve Wellard. In addition, I welcome the CEO, Michelle Reynolds, members of the public and, I welcome CEO Michelle Reynolds, other officers, members of the public and any media in attendance. 3.1. And that's apologies. So no apologies, as I've mentioned, have been received this evening, and no elected members are currently on a leave of absence. 3.2 or 3.3, it's probably 3.2, but it's been numbered 3.3 for some time on this sheet. 3.2, a leave of absence application has been received from Councillor Steve Wellard for the period 31 January 2025 to 16 February 2025 inclusive. I note that Councillor Coe has made his way into the chamber. Good evening, Councillor Coe. Now, I would also like to apply for a leave of absence, and that leave of absence will begin on the date upon which the writs are issued for the 2025 state election. That is currently a date unknown, but we do anticipate it being a date in February. So on the date that the writs are issued for the 2025 state election until the date that the outcome of the 2025 state election is formally announced. So can I just make sure that you've got that? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else, any other elected members who have an application for a leave of absence? Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 16, 17 and 18 of December inclusive, please.
Thank you, Councillor Gobbett. Are there any others? So looking for somebody to move a motion to approve those leaves of absence. Is it leaves of absence, do you think, CEO? You're a wordsmith. Or would it be leave of absences? Which would it be, do you reckon?
I'd say leaves, but I don't.
Yeah. Anyone?
Take advice.
Anyone? Anyone in Dallas? Okay. Anyway, you know what we're talking about. So the Deputy Lord Mayor has moved this motion, and the seconder is Councillor Bevan. Thank you. Let's vote on that. All those in favour? That would appear to be unanimous. Thank you. So we move to announcements by the Lord Mayor. Oh, everybody's favourite. Alrighty, I'm going to read a letter actually today, and then maybe a couple of comments of my own. But As you'll know, I've been trying to get a meeting with the Premier. Not trying to get a meeting. The City of Perth Committee is legislated to meet twice per annum, typically first half of the year and then second half of the year for the second meeting. There were some abnormalities to this during the COVID period, but of course we all understand that. But going back and checking the record since 2016, that's how it's worked. It's been called by the Premier's office, as is legislated, and they've had two a year, one in the first half, one in the second half. Anyway, as everybody in this chamber is well aware, we've been trying to move that along. There's been a few reminders. No joy. So again today, I have written to the Premier, and the letter goes as follows. Dear Premier, matters of priority. Further to my earlier correspondence, it appears neither you nor your office intend convening the next City of Perth committee meeting before the end of the year. I therefore write to highlight some key matters of importance on behalf of the City. Firstly, the City of Perth committee meeting itself. City of Perth Committee has not met since 21 August 2023. 12 months later, on the 13th of August 2024, and again on the 25th of October 2024, I wrote to you regarding the requirement under the City of Perth Act 2016, Section 14, to meet at least twice a year as decided by the Premier. Failure to meet runs contrary to the objects of the City of Perth Act 2016, which establishes the committee as a means of facilitating collaboration between the state and the City of Perth. This meeting is an important touch point between our two tiers of government and should be a critical and valued opportunity for good government for both parties. 2. Closing out the inquiry into the City of Perth following completion of all recommendations assigned to the City. The City has been on an extensive journey of transformation, with all 215 of the inquiry recommendations assigned to the City now completed. Further to instructions provided by the Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries, known in the business as the DLGSC, on closing out the inquiry, the City fulfilled all these requirements and reported completion to the City's Audit and Risk Committee on the 12th of August 2024 and subsequently Council at its ordinary Council meeting on the 27th of August 2024. This information was provided to both the Director General of the DLGSC and the Minister for Local Government on the 4th of September 2024. The most recent advice at an officer level from DLGSC on 4 December 2024 indicated the matter of formally closing out the inquiry was still under consideration by the DLGSC executive. 3. Status of inquiry recommendations attributed to the state government. On the 20th of February 2024, a question was raised by the then Deputy Lord Mayor at a council briefing session, seeking a response on the outstanding inquiry recommendations attributed to the state government as requested by council. On the 27th of February 2024, the City's CEO wrote to the Director General DLGSC requesting an update on the 126 inquiry recommendations attributed to the state government. Whilst this matter has been followed up at an officer level, this matter also continues to remain outstanding. Item 4, car park in East Perth. The state government legislated to acquire land from the City for a primary school with no right of appeal. Once the land transferred on the 23rd of October 2024, the City offered to run the car park, which operated on the land, until the school build was underway. The state government declined. The state government now offers the car parks free to commuters. There is uncertainty regarding the rationale for the state government's proposal to operate a fee-free 497-bay car park in East Perth and not accepting the City's offer to run the car parks until building of the new primary school commences. This has led to 2 car parks with no management, while at the same time incurring a parking levy for WA taxpayers with no offsets, which the City running the car parks would have prevented. Item 5. WACA ministerial rates exemption. There has been long-standing rates exemptions for the WACA. More recently, the Minister for Local Government provided a 100% rates exemption to the WACA for 24-25, overruling the city's proposal for a 0% concession. This ongoing practice of rates exemptions reduces the city's rates income as outlined. And the relevant figure for 24-25 is a table that's presented for the Premier's perusal. But the relevant figure, exemption, i.e. loss of rates income for the period 24-25, will be an amount of $209,114.69. Last year it was $73,000. This is the loss because of the exemption. The year before that, $199,000. The year before that, 21-22, $183,000. The year before that, $175,000. And the year before that, 2019-2020, $151,000. That adds up to a grand total, which is presented for the Premier's perusal in the chart that is in the letter, $992,000, just short of $1 million. Item 6, Office of Auditor General consultation process on use of parking levy. The 2023 Auditor General's report identified some key issues regarding the state government's use of the Perth parking levy, including a lack of consultation with the City of Perth. This lack of consultation continues even with the drafting of legislation into Parliament. I have advocated previously for the abolition, reduction, or at the very least, a freeze to the Perth parking levy because of the adverse impacts on business and the city's economy. My previous correspondence to you and the Minister for Transport seeking change has been ignored. In fact, the levy has continued to increase. And I sign off with, as the Lord Mayor, it has always been my role to advocate for our city. I have done this diligently and consistently. The continued disinclination for state government to engage with the city has been challenging. But we will continue and welcome a meeting to discuss the above matters which importantly affect our community. Signed by the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor. So some comments of my own. Why aren't they meeting? They don't like me? They don't like the city? Not good enough reasons. They're above it? Well, it's legislated. They have to call 2 meetings each year. It is unlawful not to do so. Is it because we haven't put their interests above those of our ratepayers? Well, sorry, that's not how it works. You heard me in the letter. As Lord Mayor, it's always been my role to advocate for our city, and it always will be. Maybe it's arrogance. Maybe it's how this state government reacts when things don't go their way all the time. But it's not what governments should do, not good ones. Maybe it's what happens when they have such a dominant position in the Parliament, they lose touch with how they are supposed to conduct themselves. I remember, and perhaps others do too, when Premier Cook became Premier. Be humble, he told his troops. Don't be arrogant. I'll let others decide how those comments stack up in the context of the points that I have raised in my letter to the Premier. I was elected as Lord Mayor and my fellow councillors to their roles to put the best interests of our city and our ratepayers first. And if that has meant we're at odds with state government, then so be it. And whatever you might think about those points that I have raised, whether it's the City of Perth committee meeting not happening, whether it's the car park in East Perth, the ministerial exemptions for WACA rates, the recommendations of the Office of the Auditor General in regards to the parking levy, I'll highlight just one, and that is the closing out of the inquiry into the City of Perth following completion of all recommendations assigned to the city. The City of Perth received 215 inquiry recommendations, which we were urged and indeed required to act upon in a diligent and efficient manner. We have done that. And the least you would think the state government could do is report back to us and say thank you. That work has been completed. I'll remind everybody that the City of Perth inquiry cost ratepayers of the City of Perth $8.5 million. And for what it's worth, it also led to the removal of a Lord Mayor and 8 elected council members. All we ask is for those inquiry recommendations assigned to the city be signed off by the state government. That shouldn't be too much to ask. And so again, as I say, if doing our job as Lord Mayor and councillors, putting the interests of our ratepayers first has meant we are at odds with state government, well, so be it. That is our job. That's why we're here. And I will always fight for the best interests of our capital city, for the City of Perth, and for the ratepayers that we represent. CEO, do we have, under item 5, disclosures of interest, any disclosures of interest tonight?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The following interests have been disclosed. Deputy Lord Mayor Bruce Reynolds has disclosed a proximity interest in item 11.2 as he owns property in the policy area. Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed a proximity interest in item 11.2 as she has been given different advice regarding disclosures. It seems prudent to adhere to the most conservative of this advice. She will disclose the same interests as Deputy Lord Mayor Reynolds. Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed a proximity interest in item 11.3 as a closely associated person to her owns property in the area contemplated in this item, and Councillor Catherine Leeser has disclosed an impartiality interest in item 12.1 for consistency and completeness as she is a councillor on Heritage Council WA. There is also a disclosure of interest from Dr. Coe in relation to item 11.3, modification to existing planning policies, and it is an impartiality interest as he is currently still employed at Royal Perth Hospital, which operate the helipad.
Thank you, CEO. Do any elected members have any additional disclosures of interest from the floor? No? Okay. Item 6 on the agenda tonight, public participation. Responses to public questions previously taken on notice is item 6.1. Now, there were no questions taken on notice at the Ordinary Council meeting on the 19th of November 2024. So that takes us to item 6.2, which is public question time itself. Now, before we commence public question time, I'll remind everybody that 15 minutes is allocated for public question time in its entirety. 15 minutes. And this time is available for asking questions only and is not for making statements or expressing personal opinions. In addition, no discussion of the questions or answers is to take place. As regular observers know, questions received with more than 24 hours notice will be responded to first. And for those of you who have submitted your question in the last 24 hours, your question will be included in the minutes of this meeting and a response will be provided in the agenda to the next Ordinary Council meeting. So, CEO, can I ask, have any public questions been received with more than 24 hours notice?
Yes, Lord Mayor. 3 members of the public have submitted public questions.
Okay, so I will now invite Sandy Angie to please step forward. Sandy, is that former Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor?
Correct, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, very familiar with former Councillor Angie, and I do not see her out there. Anyone else? Anyone see her? No? No. Okay, so that question then will be asked and answered, correct? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, I will invite David Lim. Spotted David straight away. David, if you could please step forward. David, name and you seem off centre today.
Oh,
That's
okay.
unusual.
Yeah,
That's not your fault, I don't
okay.
think. But
Right.
wow, it's thrown me completely. David, name and address if you could, please.
Okay, David Lim, Wright Street, Perth, and I've got some questions for you this evening. Firstly, Regarding the Service Division Corporate Communications, with print media being one of the main sources of information for some members of the community, Part A, what budget has been allocated for print media to keep the community informed on the city's news and services? Part B, what is the city's media strategy for communicating its Christmas and New Year's hours in relation to the availability of its services and operations? Part C, with the Post newspaper being the main source of print media for the Crawley Netherlands neighbourhood, would the city consider providing an update in the newspaper in the coming months?
Thank you, David. CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the question. The city has $10,000 allocated for press advertising, which is used on an as-needed basis. Press advertising forms a small portion of the city's communication approach. The city uses a range of mediums to communicate and share its news, including the city's website, social media platforms, and e-newsletters, as well as public relations and media engagement. In relation to the second part of the question, the city does not have a print media plan for Christmas and New Year's opening hours. Rather, we promote these on our city website. And the final section, the city, through its media team, regularly provides story ideas and media releases to the Post newspaper, along with others.
David.
Okay, next question. Regarding the line item proactive tree borer management, Part A, how is the city tracking financially with its program to address prolificus shot hole borer with subsequent agenda items, accounts paid, showing totals of $91,010.24 paid to the contractor in October and $55,000.25 in November? Part B, how is the city tracking sustainably with the progress of research and innovation that would help promote tree preservation as opposed to the removal of them? Part C, how is the city tracking locally with the health of trees in the Crawley Netherlands neighbourhood?
CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I could invite Craig Best, standing in as the General Manager, Infrastructure and Operations, to answer that question, please.
Thank you, CEO. Through the Chair, so expenditure totals $346,266, which is around about 55% year to date. In answer to Part B, the proactive nature of the city's response is one aimed at tree preservation. To date, 2,946 ground inspections and 410 aerial inspections have been undertaken. They support the approach to remove infestations via pruning and not complete tree removal. Furthermore, applications of bifenthrin have been successful in eradicating small PSHB infestations from mature London plane trees. And treatments to improve tree health, including some biostimulants, are used to increase tree vigour and vitality. A dashboard and online mapping tool has been developed to pinpoint susceptible trees and aid in the planning of proactive inspections. And a trial of drone technology utilising Normalised Difference Vegetation Index, or the NVDI for those playing at home, is planned to see if technology can further support the early intervention, identification of infestations. In answer to Part C of your question, PHB pressure exists in all of the city's neighbourhoods. Limited instances of new infestations are being identified within the Crawley Netherlands area.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, that's all.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks, Craig. And Mr. Lim, your third question.
Yes, so with Hatch Proprietary Limited, the UWA QE2 Precinct Plan Consultants' invoices totalling $108,708.55 being presented and paid in November, given reports have been finalised, regarding local planning policies, Part A, what opportunities are there to review local character and heritage preservation in the Crawley Netherlands neighbourhood? Part B, are there any areas that would meet the requirements for further analysis and policy coverage?
Thank you, David. CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I could invite Robert Farley, General Manager, Planning and Economic Development, to answer that question.
Through the Lord Mayor, and thanks for the question. So the City of Perth actually undertook a built form character study of the Crawley Nedlands area in 2021. And that background report's actually available on our Council's Engage Perth website and under the section entitled Background Reports. Now, that work's going to be provided to the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage to inform their work in preparing the improvement scheme for this area. In terms of future work and analysis, it is recommended that this question would be better directed towards the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage.
Another question, David.
Yep. So lastly, assessing traffic impact and congestion issues, with the extension of the ferry service to Matilda Bay being considered as a means of connecting the city with the Crawley Nedlands neighbourhood. Part A, what modelling has been done regarding the viability of extending the ferry service as part of the overall mix of modal transport options to the area? Part B, at what capacity is traffic infrastructure at in supporting commuter movement in the area? Would a mid-tier transport plan form part of a solution in addressing congestion?
Thank you, David. CEO.
Thank you. I think this may well be the General Manager, Planning and Economic Development, Robert Farley, to answer, please.
Through the Lord Mayor. So the proposed extension of the ferry service and the matters around the capacity of the traffic infrastructure, they are both the responsibility of the state government. So it is considered more appropriate that the Department of Transport and the Public Transport Authority would be best placed to answer these questions, David.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, General Manager. And David, is that all of your questions?
Yep, that's all. Yep.
Thank you very much. A very Merry Christmas to you.
You too.
And thanks for the integral role that you've played in our council meetings this year. We appreciate it. Please thank David, everybody. Yeah, superb. Superb. Now, Mr. Chapman is with us tonight. I'm going to invite Stuart Chapman to please step forward. Can I just ask you to stop the clock for a moment? So, Mr. Chapman, we have 15 minutes allocated for question time, as you will have heard, and that is question time in its entirety, not 15 minutes for any one person stepping forward. We've stopped the clock and we're at 7:28. Former Councillor Angie's assisted by not being here to answer the question, so a bit of extra time there, but we're halfway through it already is what I'm saying. And we're not running the clock now, so this is not eating into your time. And I note, having done a little bit of homework on this, I think that you've got 23 questions tonight. 7 of them, to me, appear to have already been asked and answered. And they are, this may assist, questions 4, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15 and 17. Now, it's entirely up to you whether you want to repeat those questions, but I do have to warn that if we get halfway through the questions and we're at 15 minutes, then we're at 15 minutes. So your call, Mr. Chapman, how you'd like to do it. But in my view and the view of the team, questions 4, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15 and 17 have been asked previously and been answered. And so you'll get the same answer again is what I'm saying.
Very good.
I'm going to start the clock, name and address.
Could I just borrow a pen and write those numbers down?
Sure, I can give them to you if you like. We aim to assist you.
So
4, 7, 8, 9, 14, and the supplementaries, only joking, 15 and 17. So 4, 7, 8, 9, 14, 15 and 17. And that help?
yes, thank you.
Great. All right, Stuart, we're going to start the clock. Name, address, away we go.
My name's Stuart Chapman. I've got a property at 59 Hillside Gardens on Malcolm Street. Lord Mayor, as a result of the FOI release, we now know on the 10th of January the City wrote the City does not support amplified sound from protest groups unless it is reasonable amplified sound is required for all participants at the rally to hear rally speakers. This means the City did not support me playing a recording of Giselle Peters using amplified sound before she died. The City cannot dispute this because I have it in writing in that particular email. Could the City please answer the following? What did the City mean when it stated the City does not support amplified sound from protest groups unless it is reasonable amplified sound is required for all participants at the rally to hear rally speakers. What did the city actually mean by that statement?
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. CEO.
If I could invite our General Manager Community Development to answer that, Rebecca Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, the City does not support the use of amplified sound where it is considered to cause disruption to the community. Any reconsideration...
Sorry, Rebecca, I'll just get you to pause. Maybe get the microphone a little closer. And Mr. Chapman, can you just turn your microphone off, and that will aid the amplification around the room. Yours is off, and Rebecca, yours is on. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the Lord Mayor, the City does not support the use of amplified sound where it is considered to cause disruption to the community. Any consideration of this position is based on an assessment of the full details provided either by an applicant to the City of Perth or to WA Police, and on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman.
Sit here. Question number 2. In the City of Perth car parks, the lowest level is reserved for female parking. What is the definition of a female according to the City of Perth?
CEO.
Could I invite Steve Holden, the General Manager Commercial Services, to respond, please?
Thank you for the question. Through the Lord Mayor, the following from the City of Perth's current LGBTQIA+ plans glossary is a statement of the City's position in relation to gender. This glossary is not exhaustive and is provided merely as a guide, as language is constantly evolving and as our understanding of who we are evolves. However, inclusive language is free from words, phrases or tones that reflects prejudice, stereotypes or discriminatory views of particular people or groups. It does not deliberately or inadvertently exclude people. Inclusive language is about welcoming all people to take part in and contribute to our communities and workplaces. The City of Perth supports the right of people to identify their sexual orientation, gender identity, or intersex status as they choose. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman.
Question 3. How much did Council spend on legal fees for SAT matter DR 123-2024 Chapman versus City of Perth?
CEO.
Thank you. I'll answer that for expediency. $14,990.15.
Mr. Chapman, you can turn it back on now. Oh, 4, yes. So your next question. We are at what we thought was one of the duplicates in question 4, but that's up to you.
Is it true that the City informed Waypol on the 19th of September that Forest Place is available for my protest?
And the answer, please, CEO.
Through to Rebecca Taylor, General Manager, Community Development, please.
Yes, through the Lord Mayor, correct. As previously responded to by email on the 3rd of December, the City of Perth advised WA Police on the 19th of September that Forest Place, Commonwealth Bank site and Hay Street Mall outside Plaza Arcade was available on the 7th of December 2024.
Mr. Chapman.
Question 5. Is it true that I was sent an email from an unnamed staff member from the City Activity Approvals section on 29th of November which stated, "Good afternoon. I'm writing in relation to your protest at Forest Place on the 7th of December. Unfortunately, Forest Place will be unavailable due to an event being scheduled in that area. However, you could still hold your protest at the Commonwealth Bank site and Hay Street Mall outside Plaza Arcade as scheduled for the 7th of December. Could I please be given a yes or no response to this question?"
CEO.
Through to the General Manager, Community Development, please.
Through the Lord Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Chapman.
Question 6. Was it true that Forest Place was unavailable for my use? A true or false response would be appreciated.
CEO.
Through to the General Manager, Community Development, please.
Through the Lord Mayor, that's incorrect. As previously responded by email on the 3rd of December, the City advised WA Police on the 19th of September that Forest Place, Commonwealth Bank site and Hay Street Mall outside Plaza Arcade were available on the 7th of December 2024. You were then advised of an event being held at Forest Place on that date. To minimise the conflicting impact of both activities, the City suggested a focus of your activity at the 2 other permitted locations. Nonetheless, your activity was still able to be held in Forest Place outside the approved event footprint. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman.
Question 7. I refer you to the email which I received from Carl Johnsons in which he wrote the city assessed both activations and determined the event would take precedence due to their size and requirements to use a large footprint. Is it true that the city decided that the city assessed both my approved permit location from Waypole and a new music event and determined the event would take precedence over my approved permit? Could a true or false response be provided, please?
CEO.
Through to the General Manager, Community Development, please.
Through the Lord Mayor, that's correct. As previously advised on the 3rd of December 2024, Forest Place is a shared public space managed by the City of Perth. The City is required to manage the public realm effectively to accommodate events and public meetings throughout the year. The WA Police permit issued included Forest Place as one of 3 approved locations. However, this did not provide sole and exclusive use. The City approved the event application for a community event following receipt of all required documentation and payment of venue hire fees. Thank you.
Chapman, I'm just stopping the clock again for a moment. Notwithstanding that, well, actually, because of the time that was chewed up in the ins and outs of it, we're at 14 minutes now, 14 minutes and 13 seconds. I'm prepared to allow the clock to run to 16 minutes because of the other chatter within the 15 minutes. But I offer this up now because you might like to focus in on 2 questions of the remainder that you have, because otherwise we're just not going to get through them all. So you might have some questions that are particularly preferable to you for you to ask, and so I wanted to give you that opportunity, a heads up on where we're at with the time.
So does that mean any unanswered questions I would have to submit them at another meeting? Is that correct?
We would take those as having been asked, and they will be answered at the. So let me read it to you. Actually, so they'll be provided. Yes, they'll be provided, as was the case with former Councillor Angie, who had asked a question but wasn't here. Therefore, it didn't get read out in chamber and didn't get answered here. But it will be answered in the minutes, and the same will happen with yours, Mr. Chapman. So any of the questions that you don't read out tonight, they will be answered, and those answers will be in the minutes of this meeting.
Thank you, Lord.
So I reckon you've got time for 2 more.
Okay, I'll make them short. I'll go to question 18. What authoritative source does the city use to keep up to date with the latest gender classifications?
If I could invite the General Manager, Corporate Services to respond, please. Wendy Attenborough.
Through you, Lord Mayor. For surveys, etc., the City is guided by the Australian Bureau of Statistics standard for sex, gender, variations of sex characteristics and sexual orientation variables. And you can see those standards at the abs.gov.au website. The website is standard sex, gender variations, sex characteristics and sexual orientation variables / latest release.
Thank you. And Stuart, I think this will be the last. We're at 15 minutes and 15 seconds.
Hard choice, but I'll go for question 12. Forest Place is approximately 150 by 125 metres. It's an area of approximately 3,750 square metres, in the area allocated for my protest on the diagram provided by Carl Johnson, and I provided a photo of that, is about 2.5 metre radius in an area of 20 metres squared. This means approximately half of 1% of Forest Place was allocated for my protest location. Would you agree with my assessment? And please note that I'm a qualified engineer and maths teacher with over 20 years experience. If you believe my figures are inaccurate, what is your assessment of the percentage area that was allocated for my protest in Forest Place?
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. CEO, through to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I could invite Rebecca Taylor, General Manager, Community Development, to respond, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Through the Lord Mayor, the area was identified as a suitable location and was one of 3 provided to WA Police. The WA Police permit does not specify the number of people in attendance for the public meeting. So therefore, the City provided a general area to focus your public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Mr. Chapman, that is beyond the time now. We're at 16 and a half minutes. Can I again thank you for participating in our process? I'm sorry that you didn't have time to ask all of the questions in the meeting, but as we've just mentioned, they will be answered for you. I also want to take the opportunity to thank you for being involved in our process. We welcome everybody, every member of our community coming into this chamber and asking questions. And, one of the things I most value, and you will have heard I know you were there, you will have heard my comments at the start of the meeting. One of the things we most value about local government is that our ratepayers can walk in off the street, follow the correct process and ask questions directly in the council chamber. You can't do that at state government level. You can't do it at federal government level, but you can do it here. And long may that be the case. And we are always pleased to see you, even if the questions that you're asking may not be eliciting the responses that you're hoping for, but they are always answered with great care and great thought, and they represent and reflect the positions of the City of Perth. And it takes some time to ensure that the correct answers are given. I know that because through my role as Lord Mayor, I'm able to see the process that the CEO and her team go through. So can I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thank you again for being here. And we hope to see you again. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chapman. Good on you. We'll try. Well, what we might do next time is we might get someone to stand there and help you with the microphone. That might be good for everyone, huh? Thank you. Good on you, mate. All right, then we move to item 7. That's confirmation of minutes. Now, I'm looking for somebody to please move the following motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on 19 November 2024. It was a good meeting, I remember it, as a true and accurate record. And I see Councillor Bevan is waving a pencil around, so I'll take that as he is a mover. I think, I didn't look that side, I'm going to go with Councillor Gobbett. He's waving, what's that you're waving around? Mouse. Oh, mouse, a mouse. Does anybody oppose this motion? This motion being unopposed, I will now declare it carried unanimously. Item 8, questions by members which due notice has been given. None of those have been received. No correspondence has been received and no petitions have been received. So we go to reports. And before we move on to reports, the following items have been identified tonight to be moved en bloc, and they are as follows. Are we taking one off? Okay, so my apologies. Those items en bloc tonight. 11.1, Hay Street, William to Elder Streets, revitalisation final concept. 15.1, monthly financial statements, October 2024. 15.2, schedule of accounts paid, October 2024. 15.3, review of council policy 2.13, payments under section 5.50 of the Local Government Act 1995, additional payments upon termination of employment. 15.5, interim monthly financial statements, November 2024. 15.6, schedule of accounts paid, November 2024. 16.4, appointing a councillor to perform the functions of the Lord Mayor. 17.1, review of council policy 2.14, risk management. And 17.2, results of the Audit and Risk Committee self-assessment. Do any elected members wish to extract any of the items that I've just listed from en bloc?
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'll extract 16.
Councillor Gonsalves.
Thanks. I'll extract 16.4.
16.4, and that is appointing a councillor to perform the functions of the Lord Mayor. So that one's come off. With the exception of 16.4, I now move a motion that these items be dealt with en bloc. Can I get a seconder for this motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Wellard. Do any members oppose this motion? Well, this motion being unopposed, I now declare it carried unanimously, and I like reading this bit. The recommendations of those items have now been passed en bloc in accordance with clause 9.2 of the City of Perth Standing Orders Local Law 2009, and the officer and or committee recommendations have been adopted by council. So we're now going to move on to the reports which have been extracted for debate. Just make note of 16.4. No longer on block. Alrighty, and the first of those is under 11, Planning and Economic Development Alliance reports. 11.1, Hay Street, William to Elder Streets, revitalisation final concept is on block. 11.2, extracted for debate, is the draft Mount Street Character Area Local Planning Policy. And at this point, I'm going to invite the Deputy Lord Mayor Bruce Reynolds and Councillor Catherine Leeser to leave the chamber. Both have declared proximity interest. We'll ask for the doors to be closed. Now, Craig may not know of his duty on this side of the room. Oh, he does? Fast learner. Fast learner, thank you. So would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Gobbett. A seconder we're looking for around the room. And there's Councillor Coe with his hand up. Councillor Gobbett. Councillor Coe. Is there anyone who wishes to speak for or against? Councillor Gobbett? Let's put this one to the vote then. All those in favour? And this is carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, 11.3, Councillor Leeser is staying out of the chamber. I wonder, Craig, if you could invite the Deputy Lord Mayor back in, but under no circumstances let Councillor Leeser back in. That's an order. Councillor Coe, there's an impartiality interest there, but that's that is declared. That was the new one that came in. But you're welcome, or you are permitted to stay. On a case of being welcome, you're always welcome. Welcome back, DLM. Doors are closed. So, 11.3 is modification to existing planning policies and design guidelines for Claysbrook Village and new Northbridge normalised redevelopment areas. Anybody keen to move the recommendation here of our officers? Thanks, Councillor Gobbett. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Doshi. Councillor Gobbett. Councillor Doshi. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Gobbett? Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? And this has been carried unanimously. Councillor Leeser's coming back in now because it's an impartiality interest as it relates to the next item. So we're opening the doors. Welcome back, Councillor Leeser. Community Development Alliance reports you rejoin us for, and the first of them tonight, 12.1, 2025-2026 Sponsorship and Grant Program. Would anybody like to move the officer's recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Leeser. And a seconder, Councillor Gobbett. Councillor Leeser.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I speak in support of the proposed sponsorship and grants and budget allocation for this upcoming financial year. Firstly, this will directly support the vibrancy of the city. Through sponsorships for events, arts programs and cultural initiatives, we continue to create opportunities for our residents and visitors to come together and celebrate what makes City of Perth unique. Vibrant events and activities foster a sense of belonging, improve well-being and make our city a more attractive place to live, work and visit. Secondly, these grants play a critical role in advancing sustainability for residential apartment buildings, often forgotten in other government funding programs. By funding assessment reports and energy upgrades, the city is empowering strata schemes to take action on climate change. This aligns with our broader goals of building a greener city and a more resilient city for future generations. And finally, the economic benefits of this program can't be overstated. These investments stimulate local economic activity, create jobs, and attract further investment into our city. A thriving local economy benefits us all and helps ensure long-term prosperity. Approving this program sends a clear message. We continue to be committed to our community's creativity, its resilience and its potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leeser. This item tonight was seconded by Councillor Gobbett. Councillor Gobbett?
Reserve my right, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against?
Just have some questions.
Yes, Councillor Gonsalves.
Thanks. So I just note there that the three largest items are the major events festival sponsorship, the event sponsorship, and the arts and culture sponsorship, which makes part makes up the sponsorship program in total. They've stayed the same since last year. The largest one is 1.6 million, then 1 million and 800,000 from what I can see in last year's budget. I'm just wondering, is there any reason why these budgets have stayed static and why we haven't accounted for inflation or any other increases?
Thanks, thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. CEO. And Councillor Lees, your microphone's still on, I think.
Oh, I'm
CEO.
I'll invite the General Manager, Community Development to respond, but we may need to take that on notice so we can give you a more fulsome response. But if I could hand to the General Manager for a preliminary. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Through the Lord Mayor. So we have a provisional allocation of 3% of our own source revenue that goes towards grants and sponsorships annually. So we are working within a portfolio. We did present the sponsorships and grants program to elected members in an EMES in the last month. So I think as a provisional response, and as the CEO said, we can come back, take it on notice and come back with more detail, but we're trying to balance out all of the grant programs adequately. We do note that those three major ones that you were talking about, arts and culture, event sponsorship and major events and festivals, are in demand, but that does not preclude us. Obviously, we want to support other programs and other grant programs across our other pillars of sustainability and prosperity, as well as livability. Thank you.
Thank you. With more to come. Councillor Gonsalves.
The second question is just relating to that 3% increase, or the 3% target rather, based on our rates. Our rates have seen an inflation increase. Would it therefore not be logical to then match that at, we're receiving slightly more due to inflation, and we would obviously, I would think, try to match that in terms of our expenditure. Should that 3% not stay static and therefore mean that we should have an increase at this stage?
So, Councillor, the question is the question you're asking, because this is before the council now, so you can argue. You're free to argue whatever you want. That's.
I can rephrase that. So, just in terms of the advice given just now, we were told that we could receive more information. I'd like to know whether we could receive more information regarding that 3% target, and knowing that there has been inflationary effects on our rates, whether that can also be matched in terms of our expenditure.
I can just help. Can I assist with some of that answer? I mean, the cost of doing business, every part of the business has gone up. And I'm very proud of the modest rate rise that the City of Perth has been able to preside over, 1.95%, one of the lowest rate rises of the major metro councils. But the cost of doing every element of our business has gone up significantly. And I note that we are losing some of our revenue sources because car parks are being taken away from us. We have two major sources of revenue at the City of Perth. They are car parking and rates. We will always try and do everything we can to keep rate rises at a minimum. But we can increase our budgets whatever percentage anybody wants us to do. But to do that, we'll have to do it. We can increase these budgets for activations and events anyfold, but the money's got to come from somewhere. And that could mean increasing the rates. And I don't think that's what you're arguing for, Councillor Gonsalves.
I think the question that I asked was related to the 3% target that has already been provided as information. And I want to know whether we're going to match that target, considering that is already within our plan.
Okay. And just one further thing before that question is answered. And I appreciate absences occur, but the reason for the agenda briefing session is for councillors to be able to ask questions. And it is incumbent on councillors, if they are not able to attend the agenda briefing session for whatever reason, They view the agenda briefing session online. They take their time to catch up with discussion. It could be that questions have already been asked and therefore don't need to be repeated here. And of course, they are able to submit questions via chief.executive in the normal manner. And so this is a general comment. I'll remind all councillors, if you're unable to attend an agenda briefing session, it is incumbent upon yourself to bring yourself up to speed and up to date. CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm just taking some advice, but at the minute, if I'm understanding the question, currently the budget that is being proposed is the 3% of eligible own source revenue. To your point, if we were to increase rates and also increase parking revenue, then whatever that was the new figure, then that would be a 3%. The question, I think, or the opportunity that the elected member might be exploring is there an appetite to increase that 3%? That would need to be a council decision. The 3% was a previous council decision. So that's a matter that could be discussed now through an amendment or other such.
Okay.
And just my last question, and just to clarify that this isn't, presents an opportunity for me to ask questions in relating to the medium and longer term. The questions that I'm asking are not necessarily I'm asking about our budget process, and I don't see it being relevant whether this was discussed at a previous meeting, because the questions that I'm asking now are around the advice given by the administration around that 3% target.
Let's get to the question then,
So that
Councillor.
around that 3% target, which was just provided for the first time, and therefore prompting my questions, whether that 3% target will be discussed as part of our due budget deliberations.
Thanks, Councillor. CEO.
It's not anticipated at this time. That was a decision of council. If the council are now interested in amending the 3%, this would be the time when you would have that conversation.
Councillors. Councillor Gonsalves, are you the conclusion of your questions?
Just to clarify, just on that last point, through you, Lord Mayor, on what the CEO just advised, but it wouldn't necessarily preclude us from a further discussion at a later date. I mean, that's not always an open discussion we could have.
Correct, councillor. At any point, particularly when we're having our budget discussions, if there's a provision to change any of these predetermined amounts, it would just need to come back to council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gonsalves. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against the motion? I'll take the opportunity to speak for. We're very proud of our sponsorship and grants programs as listed and as highlighted by councillors already, including event sponsorship of $1 million, arts and culture sponsorship of $800,000 and other significant amounts like $650,000 for economic development sponsorships and $500,000 for local activation grants. I note that our community do not take these amounts for granted. Our council team and the Lord Mayor are always invited to these events and activations when they take place. And it's always with great gratitude that we are acknowledged for the funding that we provide via our sponsorship and grants programs when we attend and in other correspondence. And we're very pleased to be able to offer an amount of around $5.3 million and $250,000 in kind. I note today the state government has announced a metro events program and a budget for $3.6 million. And I also note in the announcement today where that money is going. And I think it highlights why what we do here is so important. Because our money goes into City of Perth events, events that activate our capital city, that bring our city to life. I note that in the announcements today of the $3.6 million funding, they went to events like the Avon Descent, the Bickley Harvest Festival, the Entwined in the Valley Festival, Fremantle Biennale, Fremantle International Street Arts Festival, Fringe Festival, some of which of course takes place in the city of Perth, which is excellent, Groundswell Festival, Joondalup Festival, Perth Comedy Festival, which having done some research late this afternoon, I note there are 4 venues for the Perth Comedy Festival, one of which is in the city of Perth. That's the Rechabites, so that's excellent. The Quokka, and that's the races, I think, and it's a race called the Quokka, and WA Race Week, Ocean Paddler. So I think there were 11 different events there that have received the funding from the state government, $3.6 million. But it was interesting because when I further read up about this, those events were actually invited to apply, but it wasn't an invitation that went out more broadly. So only those events were able to apply for that $3.6 million. And I say that because that is entirely different to our process, which is completely open and transparent, and for anybody within the City of Perth community to take the time, put a diligent application in, and then receive funding. And isn't that magnificent? So I'm very pleased about that. I, by the way, take the opportunity to congratulate the recipients of that $3.6 million, and those events obviously will prosper because of it. But I do note the difference, and I think it's an important distinction. One, most of that money heading away from the centre of Perth, albeit there are 2 events within that envelope. But our events, it's a broad application process. For this state government money, they were actually asked to apply, and all 11 received funding. No one else was able to apply. No one else knew to apply. And I think that speaks volumes for our process, the transparency and fairness and openness of it. Well done, local government, I say. I commend it to my fellow elected members. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? I think we started with Councillor Leeser.
Nothing further, Lord Mayor.
Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's go then to item 13 and 14. Now, we don't have any of those tonight. Infrastructure and Operations Alliance reports and Commercial Services Alliance reports. Nope. 15. Corporate Services Alliance reports. 15.1 is the monthly financial statements for October 2024. This one's on block. 15.2, Schedule of Accounts paid October 2024 on block. 15.3, for the trifecta, having mentioned the Quokka, review of Council Policy 2.13, payments under Section 5.50 of the Local Government Act 1995, additional payments upon termination of employment, also on block. This takes us now to item 15.4, audit, exit, interview and presentation of audited 2023-2024 financial statements. This is extracted for debate. An absolute majority is required here tonight. Councillor Leeser looking to move and looking for a seconder. Councillor Gobbett. Councillor Leeser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I often get told that audit isn't very sexy, but I'm going to make a few comments anyway. So this year's audit reflects a significant achievement for our city. For the second year in a row, the auditors found no instances of non-compliance in their review, which demonstrates the strong governance, financial discipline and dedication of the team. It's no small feat for an organisation of our size and complexity, and it underscores the city's commitment to accountability, transparency in managing public resources. While the audit did find 1 moderate and 2 minor control risks, these findings are within acceptable thresholds and provide valuable insight for continuous improvement. This result reflects the effectiveness of the measures the city has implemented since the City of Perth inquiry, including enhanced internal controls and a renewed focus on risk management. It's a testament to our collective efforts to ensure the city's financial health and operational integrity. I want to thank the Audit and Risk Committee, the city team and the auditors for their diligence and hard work. Approving this motion reinforces our commitment to responsible governance, and I urge all councillors to support.
Thank you, Councillor Leeser. We cross across to Councillor Gobbett, who's shaking his head. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Willard.
Through you, Lord Mayor. I'd actually attended my first Risk Committee meeting, of course, chaired by Councillor Lezer. And I just wanted to say that I was impressed with the professionalism in the room and the collaboration that was shown and the high respect for the council that came from those third parties. So again, it was a tremendous process, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Weller. Nice comments. Very nice. I'm going to receive them with thanks on your behalf, Councillor Leeser, who runs the Audit and Risk, was the chair of the Audit and Risk, but not for long, because local government, the changes to the Local Government Act will mean that from next year? Yes. From next year? From next year, there will need to be an independent chair of the Audit and Risk, which, how many local governments are there? 130. So 130 local governments are going to have to find independent audit and risk chairs. How are you going to do that? Huh? About 130. It's a lot, isn't it? Right. No one else for or against. Councillor... Oh, was there anyone else for and against? Councillor Leeser? Nothing further. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? 137, information flashing through. All those, was that Councillor Kane, Councillor Leeser, just hands remaining so we can see that it is a full house and that is carried unanimously. Item 15.5. En bloc, the interim monthly financial statements November 2024. And 15.6, the schedule of accounts paid November 2024. That item is also on bloc. 16 is Chief Executive Officer Alliance report. 16.1 is the adopting of the annual report and setting the date for the 2023-2024 Electors General meeting. Now, this has been extracted for debate. An absolute majority is required and was the subject of a deputation earlier. Councillor Leeser, moving this one. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Doshi. Councillor Leeser.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to support the approval of the annual report and the proposed date for the electors' AGM. This report highlights the incredible work our city has achieved over the past year, and I want to commend the city team on their efforts. The stats in the report are definitely worth a read, and they showcase the scale and impact of the city's services. And I'd like to just highlight a few that really impressed me. Of course, I'm going to talk about the library, but the library welcomed an incredible 330,374 visitors, demonstrating an enduring value of this facility in our community. There was 14,212 square metres of graffiti removed, Lord Mayor, keeping our city clean, safe and welcoming for all. And I was astonished to read that the customer service team handled an impressive 42,212 phone calls, providing vital assistance to residents and businesses alike. I really look forward to the electors' AGM and I hope it's well attended this year. This meeting is an important opportunity for our community to engage directly with us, share their thoughts and help shape the future of our city. And I encourage all residents to attend and participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leeser. This item was seconded tonight by Councillor Doshi. Councillor Doshi, anything from you? Okay. Anything else from any councillors for or against? Councillor Leeser? I think you've said it all. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Item 16.2, this is extracted for debate. Review of Council Policy 4.5, National and International Engagement Policy. Now, I have had prior notification that Councillor Coe intends or is keen on moving an amendment. You keen to do that now, or do we need to put it up? Does it come up first? Oh, we get it up first. We get it after 4 years. You think I'd know that, Councillor Coe? So up it comes. Would anyone like to move the recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Gobbett. And a seconder. Deputy Lord Mayor. Okay. Councillor Gobbett or Councillor Coe, would you like to move it now? Move it now.
Yep, I'd like to move the motion.
Yes.
So,
an amendment.
Sorry, amendment.
Yes.
Yeah. So I grossly support this policy. I think as a capital city, it's very important we actually sell ourselves and actually attend these sister city meetings and these events overseas. So grossly, I actually support having delegates actually go overseas and promote our city. In saying that, the spend on some of these trips is quite expensive, and I want to be able to prove to all the elected members as well as the ratepayers as well that we are getting value for money. So my amendment, if you can put it up on the screen, please. So it's a simple sentence. I just want a time frame on when we actually receive a report. And I endorse the city's recommendation of 6 weeks upon return from a delegation, of the delegation. Upon return, let's say from. Okay, thank you.
So we're going to need a seconder. It's captured on the screen accurately for you, Dr. Coe or Councillor Coe? So at the moment we've got, as was with A, the addition of the following words at the end of clause 10, at an elected member engagement session within 6 weeks upon return of the delegation. Does that capture the spirit of what you're after? It does. Thank you. So we need a seconder now. Councillor Bevan. Now we're speaking to the amendment. So Councillor Coe, do you wish to speak for?
I thought I spoke already.
Yeah, well, you sort of gave us your motion.
Oh.
You can expand if you want.
Okay. So I was thinking more like this can be done at an elected engagement session. It can also be done as a CIBN. I've noticed we just received a report summary of the Koshima trip as well, and I'm actually quite happy with that. So it can be done we can change it and have it say at an engagement session or as a email to all the elected members as well.
Well, that's then changing what we've got, and we're past the point of no return there. But I think the spirit of what you're saying can be captured. So at an elected member engagement session within 6 weeks upon the return of the delegation, is what we were considering. You're saying you're notionally saying now, but an email would be suffice. But that is what happened for Kagoshima.
Yeah, we can keep it as it is.
Keep it as it is, because then it gives a definite point. I mean, you could receive an email in the meantime, but still knowing that it would be closed out at the EMES. So I think that's quite sensible. Councillor Bevan.
I second this motion because I thought it was quite a reasonable thing to do. It's important that if we have these visits overseas and we have people coming here, we should report back as to how effective they are and how they help our city of Perth.
Thank you. Councillor Gobbett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and absolutely agree with what's been said so far. It's entirely reasonable that we should be demonstrating value for money from the city's ratepayers. And although I agree with the intent of the amendment, I think the explanation that Councillor Coe gave is slightly at odds with what we're able to do. If Councillor Coe is asking to be able to prove to elected members, presenting it at an elected member engagement session would make it a confidential piece of information, which we're then not able to share with our ratepayers. So I take the intent of the amendment, and I don't think the intent is that it should be confidential because we should be demonstrating to our ratepayers. But just as a minor point for the public record, absolutely agree with the intent of communicating the importance. Having recently returned from one myself, I've found it extremely valuable. But also to the point, I wouldn't want to prejudice any potential commercial considerations that might come out of that. So just something to be wary of for future, but as I said, happy with the amendment.
Thanks, Councillor Gobbett. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the amendment? The amendment we're talking. And then we will vote on this, and then we'll return to the substantive. Yep, Councillor Gonzalez.
Some questions.
Sure.
Do any existing policies capture this in any other way?
That's the main item. Yeah, so that is the Council Policy 4.5, correct? Please. via you, CEO. That's with your. Okay.
Through you, Lord Mayor, we're just debating on the amendment now. If you have questions about the main item, you'll need to ask those during the
No,
debate.
this is about the amendment, whether any other policies include any provisions for reports.
Okay. CEO.
In regards to the provision of reports after, if I could take that on notice to ensure that I give you a thorough response.
Okay. Anyone else? For or against? This is the amendment. Councillor Coe?
Nothing else to add, thanks.
All right, let's put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? And that is Councillor Doshi, Councillor Bevan, Councillor Wellard, Councillor Gobbett, the Lord Mayor, Councillor Gonsalves, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Coe. And those against, Councillor Leeser. So the amendment is passed 8-1, which returns us to the substantive as amended. And that was moved by Councillor Gobbett, I believe. Councillor Gobbett? And you haven't spoken yet? Sorry?
I don't wish to speak at this time.
Okay, yeah. And who's seconded by DLM?
And I've got questions as well.
Yeah, well, let's get first DLM has the opportunity as the seconder. DLM, anything from you? Nothing further to add. Thank you. Councillor Gonsalves?
Just through you, Lord Mayor, to the administration, if you will, that around what we just passed before, the audit, audited financials. And I note there that on page 677, we've got a report there on our related travel expenses. I realise this has been passed as a separate item, but my question relates to the policy rationale and whether, I can see in those expenses that the Lord Mayor's budget was $6,500 or so for travel, but it was nearly $60,000 in actuality, whereas the elected members' travel budget was $45,000 and in actuality was $20,000. And I'm just wondering, does this policy capture a rebalancing of our approach to travel and international engagement? Because from what I can see from the audit is that the Lord Mayor has spent nearly 10 times the amount allocated in the budget for travel and accommodation expenses, whereas the rest of the elected members are sitting at about half their budget.
So, Councillor, we're speaking here about 4.5, and have you're talking about something.
I'm using that merely as evidence to ask the question whether this policy is the rationale is to expand or rebalance any budgetary imbalance there. Six, seven.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a series of questions there that I'd like to have at least the opportunity for the administration to answer, even though I'm not certain that they necessarily relate to the item that we have in front of us. But CEO, we're in your hands.
If I could invite the Executive Director, Governance and Strategy to answer the question as it relates to the policy. If there's questions around budget, she may also be able to answer some of that. However, our CFO is unwell tonight, and so the specifics of how budget is allocated, I would note that although the budget might well be allocated under the Lord Mayor's budget item, more than likely it's covering costs for all expenses, not exclusively the Lord Mayor, but I cannot confirm that without the CFO's advice. If I could invite the Executive Director to respond, please.
Thank you, CEO, and through the Lord Mayor. This policy is really about providing accountability and transparency around the City of Perth's responsibilities under the City of Perth Act as it relates to national and international engagement, and really designed to provide that accountability and transparency. Separate to the policy is a very fulsome budget process which Council approve each year. And that's a process that will kick off early in the new year. And so Council will have the opportunity to reconsider the budget for the following financial year and make decisions separate to this policy. But this policy is really designed to provide that guidance around decisions related to engagement at both a national and international level, and to provide accountability to our community and ratepayers on how those decisions are made, and provide the process for how the City and Council go about selecting opportunities for delegations, and also the follow-up and transparency around the outcomes following those delegations. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO?
On the issue of budget, can I invite the General Manager Corporate Services to give us some more details, please, with regards to the expenditure? The $6,000 in the budget for travel for the Lord Mayor's office doesn't sound correct, so I'm uncertain what line item you might be referencing, Councillor. If you could direct us to the line item, that would be of assistance. Sorry, I'm not certain if we can do that, because I know we're now going back to a budget paper, but if I could take some advice from governance, and at the same time, Councillor, if you could direct us to the line item.
Sure, it's on page 677, and it just relates to the financial report for the year ending 30th of June 2024. And it's in the first paragraph there that details elected member remuneration, which was going to be a follow-up question relating to that.
Okay, CEO.
Yes, just waiting for that.
So 677.
677. Conference and training expenses. Yes, I think there's some... Unless the General Manager Corporate Services has some more information, I'm not certain that we're talking about the same budget, so I might need to take that on.
What's the page number on the bottom of your page, Councillor Gonsalves?
677.
Right, and so you're not seeing what Councillor Gonsalves is seeing?
Let's take it on notice.
No, well, I don't mind you having a go at answering it here,
No,
team.
well, I don't think we would do it justice.
I appreciate the
Lord
CFO's not here, but, you know, I'm happy to be patient and see. I mean, you were throwing across to the other General Manager. We're not doing that now?
I think the General Manager is currently examining the papers.
I think just to clarify,
There's no acting CFO.
the question is whether the policy... Just to clarify, the question is relating to, does this policy broaden out our budgetary kind of process or imperative? Because obviously there it states that the budget was an order of magnitude less in the budget than what we had. So 6,000 versus nearly 60,000 in spending. And I note that the other part is that the other elected members were at half of their spending. So I feel like there's kind of a bit of an imbalance there with the way we approach travel and our international engagement. And I'm wondering whether this policy is attempting to engage us to have these kind of discussions around the budget, or whether it would be a foundation for us to have further discussion.
So this is actually the policy for travel, how it occurs. That's a separate discussion to the budget that is determined by Council. If I could invite the General Manager Corporate Services to respond, please.
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Lord Mayor. The 6.5 or 6.5 5/6 allocation is split across all. So the same allocation is made for each member. So there is a 6,500 for the Lord Mayor, similarly for the Deputy Lord Mayor, and then the 45, which is for all other members, is the same allocation. So per head, if that makes sense. So it isn't that there is one amount for the Lord Mayor and another for all other members. So it's in effect a cash flowing mechanism. But I think that we should take.
I'm sorry, I think we're looking at something completely different. So we're looking at elected members. This is fees, expenses, and allowances. So I think where I'm talking about is the actual budget for elected members' travel, which is different to.
Yeah. So Councillor Gonsalves is asking about, or is referencing the allowances,
Yes.
but not the actual budget.
Yes. So is it?
Really am trying to get to that core question of where exactly are we budgeting these expenses, and I guess figuring this out, that there's, and my next question was going to be, why is it included in our remuneration area rather than a travel budget itself?
So again, you know,
but it seems like, can I ask, it seems like there are two different budget pools.
Well, there's two different items, I think. One is allowances and one is the budget for travel. That is a totally different thing. Is that correct, CEO?
It is correct, and I'm sorry for the confusion. So this is actually about the total, it's allocations, whereas a budget is a total budget that is allocated for travel for elected members and also the Lord Mayor. So I feel like we're at cross purposes, and possibly if we could have the question, is it elected members' remuneration under fees, expenses and allowances paid that you'd like clarification on the $6,000 allocated per elected member? Is that the question?
Because I think, Councillor Gonsalves, you've referenced an amount for the Lord Mayor's travel. Well, that's not an allowance for that. That is the travel for the Lord Mayor representing the City of Perth, doing his or her job. Allowances are monies or other things that they might claim. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
The 6,000 relates to allowances, but the travel and accommodation expenses is different again. So we really are talking about very different things, and I wonder if we could take the question on, I'm assuming, the $6,000, so the travel and accommodation expenses, which is allocated in the budget as 6,556. If we could take that on notice and we could give you a breakdown, and that comes under fees, expenses and allowances paid. Is that?
That actually gets to the core of my question of just what is going on with these different line items and where how they all come together, particularly around this policy, noting that this policy allows for a broader engagement without council approval, or one of the items seems to indicate that expenditure on international engagement will not necessarily require a council decision when it's already budgeted. So that my question really goes, how are we budgeting this?
Yes.
And where are these line items, and how does the public understand what money is being spent?
Again, Councillor Gonsalves, general commentary before we get the answer. That's why it's really helpful if these questions can be provided in advance of this decision-making forum, which is our council meeting, because then all of the answers to your questions could have been answered. Now, I appreciate it's unhelpful and unfortunate that the CFO is absent tonight. He's ill, I'm told, by the CEO. So I appreciate that's bad luck. But nonetheless, it is the reason why the agenda briefing session precedes by 1 week the council meeting. The council meeting is for debate and decision making. And questions coming up without notice delay that process. So I do again urge all of my fellow elected members, if unable to attend an agenda briefing session, please get your questions in so that the administration has the full opportunity to answer them as effectively and with all consideration possible. It makes for a better meeting, it makes for a better process, it makes for better answers to your questions. CEO.
Thank you. Just to be very clear, the process for allocating the budget for travel is agreed by council. So it is not the case that travel goes unauthorised. It is approved by council as part of the budget process.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a question now because in the questioning from Councillor Gonsalves, I heard a suggestion that the Lord Mayor's travel budget was way over. Now, that needs to be corrected if that is not the case.
Again, I think we are better, rather than continuing with what is now a confusing conversation, to, if we could have the questions in writing from the councillor, we will answer them and then they will be available to everyone. But if we could have the questions provided to us in the first instance, we will provide a fulsome response.
Thanks. And my last question relates to just our budgetary processes. So the reason why it's being brought up at this stage is because this audit only came out now, and this policy is attempting to reframe our engagement on the international and international aspect. So what I'd like to know is whether we will be following this policy in our budget processes and learning from what, or in being informed from what the policy suggests.
I think, unfortunately, we're conflating two issues. The purpose of this policy is to provide clarity and ensure a solid governance process for any travel that is undertaken. Separate to that, there is a budget process that council determine themselves that allocate expenditure against that. So I think we're conflating two very separate issues, noting that council approved both, most importantly.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question for process going into next year while it's fresh. So when we've got a situation where 15.4 has been raised and voted on block, do you want me to repeat the question? Yeah. So just for process for next year, when we've got an item like 15.4 which has been raised and voted for on block, which is the financial statements, and then we've got an item that's been raised, are we able to come back to that original thing that's already been voted, raised and dealt with?
Let's see, through you to...
Otherwise, I just don't want it to
the Alliance Manager Governance.
Through you, Lord Mayor, councillors can use them as an example to illustrate a point they're making, but debate cannot begin again on an item that's already been determined.
Okay, so we are back at the substantive, and we have we heard from Councillor Gobbett on the substantive? You're the original mover. This is as amended. So the substantive as amended. Councillor Gobbett.
Nothing further, Lord Mayor.
And Deputy Lord Mayor, you are the second... Is that the... So where are we at? Yeah. So was there anyone else for or against? Anyone else for or against?
Yeah.
Councillor
I'll speak
Gonsalves.
in favour.
Yeah.
So I broadly welcome a new approach to our international engagement that takes a really comprehensive view as to how we can engage both internationally and nationally. I think my concerns there before is just how our budget processes are equipped to capture all of that understanding and how the public can really break down what exactly is being spent when we are undertaking international engagement. I think, and the rationale for that is that I think it's important for the public to have due confidence in our in the approach that council is taking with the international engagement and knowing exactly what is being spent and where. So I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. Councillor Weller.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I also speak in support of the motion. I think it's very good to have this sort of policy out there set a skeleton for these sort of trips that are obviously very important for our city. And I think the timing of it is quite good because this will be set well and truly in advance of when we commence our budget setting process for the next financial year, and we'll be able to take this amongst other things into consideration when we do set those budgets to make sure we are spending the right money in the right areas. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Weller. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the substantive as amended? Councillor Gobbett.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. As we put this item to the vote, just to note, might be a bit tricky if we're taking any planned trips towards the end of the year. I think it's something like 8 or 9 weeks between the last engagement session for this year and the next one next year. So we might need to do some planning in the future, but otherwise happy with the policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gobbett. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. So we move then to item 16. That was 16.2. So now go to item 16.3, proposed City of Perth dog law, local law. Who'd like to move the officer's recommendation here? Thanks, Councillor Leeser. And a seconder? Seconder? Thanks, Councillor Gonsalves. Councillor Leeser.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. For many of us, dogs are not just pets. They are part of the family. They're our fur family. This review ensures the local law reflects the evolving needs of dog owners while maintaining harmony with our broader community. One of the key benefits of this update is the improved clarity around off-leash spaces. By clearly designating areas where dogs can run freely and socialise, we are supporting responsible pet ownership while minimising conflicts in shared spaces. These updates will provide dog owners with certainty while also ensuring that non-dog owners feel comfortable and safe when enjoying our parks and open spaces. As a city surrounded by incredible natural beauty, it's vital that our laws balance the needs of pet owners and the preservation of our unique environment. These updates will help protect kangaroos and other wildlife from unnecessary harm while maintaining the city's biodiversity. This review is a win for responsible dog owners, for wildlife and the broader community, and I urge my fellow councillors to support these changes and continue building a city that values all members of our community, whether they walk on 2 legs, 4 paws or hop on 2 feet. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leeser. Councillor Gonsalves.
Thanks. Commend those words there, and reiterate that I think this provides some confidence and surety for all dog owners and all members of the public in knowing that our outdoor spaces are more inclusive, they're more dynamic, and they're more accessible for those with pets and dogs.
Thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. Anyone wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Leeser? Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried. Deputy Lord Mayor, you have a hand up there? Keep them up. Thanks, everyone. Yep, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So 16.4 has come off on block, and this is appointing a councillor to perform the functions of the Lord Mayor. Who'd like to move the officer's recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Doshi. And a seconder, the DLM himself, Councillor Doshi. Okay, they're reserving your right at this point. DLM. Okay, also no. Anyone wishing to speak for or Councillor Gonsalves?
So I do have some questions, and on this occasion, I think I should preface it by saying that this item was not on the agenda for the agenda briefing session, and therefore did not present an opportunity for any further questioning. So that's my first question. Is there a reason why it wasn't on the agenda briefing session agenda last week?
CEO, so it was discussed at the EMES with the elected members present.
Correct.
And so is that the answer for Councillor Gonsalves?
That's exactly right. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And I do note, though, however, that it was presented a month before in a different form. Is there any rationale as to what we saw? Because the public saw an item appear on the agenda briefing session agenda for November, and then saw it drop off, and then saw it drop back in, but not at the agenda briefing for December, but of course for tonight's meeting.
CEO.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, councillors were advised that I would bring the matter back to this meeting, so there was early advice. We did have a discussion, particularly around process and the like, at the elected members' engagement session, and the paper is recommending that Councillor Gobbett be appointed to the functions of the Lord Mayor if both the Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor are unavailable.
Councillor Gonsalves, anything further?
I rewatched the agenda briefing session for November, and where the CEO provided some understanding around what the Act provides. And so my next questions are really around that. Obviously, because the item didn't progress to the ordinary council meeting, there wasn't further opportunity to ask. But looking at 104, so 1 hour and 4 minutes, where the CEO provides an explanation that the Act, in her opinion, if I may say, that that she could appoint a new, or I'm just going to call it a deputy mayor with the agreement of 2 councillors selected by the CEO. But my reading, and I've got it right here in front of me, says that it says a person not appointed under subsection 1, the CEO, after consultation with and the agreement of 2 councillors selected by the CEO, may perform the functions of mayor or president as the case requires. Now, in my reading, that sounds like the CEO takes on that responsibility rather than somehow deferring to 2 councillors.
I might just, before the CEO responds, point out that the elected member engagement session with all of the elected members present, there were the options for reaching this conclusion were outlined. I think the option that Councillor Gonsalves is referring to, that is one of the options, and that was presented as an option, as were other ways to come to this conclusion, and that's what happened at the elected member engagement session with the elected members present. Now, I note, Councillor Gonsalves, you weren't present, so wouldn't know that information, but options were presented to the elected members, and the elected members determined that this was the way to bring this forward. CEO.
So to answer the elected member's question, if I could ask the Manager of Governance to respond to the interpretation in the legislation. Thank you. Too much.
Through you, Lord Mayor, and I can't access the exact words right now, but I believe there are 2 options. There are one for the CEO to appoint a councillor, or alternatively to acting the role to fulfil the functions herself.
To clarify, I've got the wording right in front of me. I believe that I agree that there is a second option for the CEO to undertake that role. That's my interpretation, but that wasn't the advice given at our last agenda briefing session. But in the first instance, the first provision is different from what was just stated. It's that the council may appoint a councillor to perform that function, which is inherently what we're doing.
That's what
now.
we're doing tonight, yeah.
Yep. So it wouldn't. So there's a logical kind of inconsistency there.
What's the question, Councillor?
Is that I still maintain that the reading for the second option is that the CEO performs that function. And my question is that correct? Or I really want to know what is the alternative proposal, because we were advised that the CEO could select a councillor, and I don't believe that to be the case.
CEO, through you to governors.
Through you, Lord Mayor, the case is if a councillor has not been appointed, then the CEO can perform the functions as described.
Yeah, so just to clarify that that's different from what was provided as information at the last agenda briefing session.
The last agenda briefing session was last week.
Sorry, the agenda briefing session that dealt with this matter in November.
CEO?
I'm just wondering, as it relates to what's proposed today, I'm just not certain how it relates to what's being proposed. Sorry, Lord Mayor. So, what would you like me to answer? I don't.
Okay,
I
unable to answer, you can say.
Well, I'm just saying that this paper's actually suggesting the appointment of Councillor Liam Gobbett to the functions. So that's within the remit of the legislation and within council.
Yeah,
So do you want us to get some further advice on
well, I
the
think it's
alternatives?
been tabled already, different advice, and I just wanted to clarify. I would like to clarify for the future's sake as well,
Sure.
if we ever end up in this position again, because the Act provides for two options, but we're utilising one option at the moment. But
So
the
can I just
second
jumping in on that? So last week at the elected member engagement session where present councillors discussed this, 3 options were presented. One of them was for the method that we've all become aware of, that in the absence of the deputy, to give it another name, that the CEO, together with 2 elected members, could decide who that person would be. That was one option presented. Option 2 was for the group at the elected member engagement session to determine who they best felt was the name to come forward to this council meeting today. That is the option that councillors who were present took, and that name was Councillor Gobbett, as you see presented in the papers. And the third option was to return to the chamber with a vote for the deputy. But the decision of the elected members in the room, the discussion of the elected members in the room was to go for the middle option, which was elected members would decide at the engagement session which name they felt was best to come forward for consideration at this council meeting, and that's what we have in front of us now. So it was that option 2 that we were presented with that councillors decided was the best way forward, and Councillor Gobbett's name was the one that the group decided should be the one in the paper.
I still want to clarify that that understanding of the CEO performing the function is the interpretation of this.
So on that one, you'll answer that in writing?
So if we could have the question maybe in writing to assist us, that would be fabulous, and then we could provide you a comprehensive response. Thank you.
The next question is related to the circumstances of which we can take that first option. So while I've addressed that second option, the Act does say who acts if no mayor, president or deputy. It does say that if the circumstances mentioned apply and the office of deputy is vacant, or B, the deputy or deputy is not available and unwilling to perform the functions of mayor or president, they provide that as the 2 instances of which we can decide to appoint another councillor. Now, I would put, my question is, have we fulfilled those 2 provisions? Firstly, A, the office of deputy or the office of deputy mayor is not vacant, and B, I don't have any confirmation that the deputy or deputy president is unable or unwilling to perform the functions. And in my interpretation, we seem to be exceeding the limits of the Act in that it provides only those 2 examples where we can act, where we can utilise that provision. So my concern is that we are utilising a provision beyond the scope of the Act.
Okay. CEO?
So if I could take that on notice. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor, anything further?
Just say that I reserve my right to speak.
Okay, there were questions then. All right. Councillor Bevan, did I see your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I see this as simply good management. Changes are coming our way at the City of Perth. It's better to be safe than sorry, and I believe that Councillor Gobbett brings a lot of experience to the chamber. He's had 12 years in local government, and there's a good chance he won't be needed at all, except for if the Deputy Lord Mayor has to leave the chamber for any reason, then we'll have someone who's very capable to fill in that role.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Deputy Lord Mayor Reynolds.
Yes, I'd just like to echo a little bit further along the lines of Councillor Bevan's statement. It was put to us that it would be good governance in the event that I won't be able to preside next year, and that could happen through a range of reasons. It could happen through a leave of absence, it could happen through a conflict of sorts, or it could happen if there is travel arrangements where we have to visit a sister city or something of that alike. So now we're in a situation where we have a model which will provide us with good governance. And again, you know, Councillor Gobbett, his professionalism, leadership has been duly noted, obviously, by his peers and is held in high regard. So I feel that as a council, we have done what is putting us in the best position to move forward in any eventuality of next year.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against? Councillor Gonsalves.
Thanks. While I appreciate the input and concerns and the goodwill shown by other councillors in trying to avoid any potential issues in any vacancies or inability to perform the Deputy Mayor's role, I'm still concerned around the governance.
Questions, Councillor. Sorry, you're speaking for or against?
I'm speaking against.
Against, okay.
I'm still not satisfied that the governance rationale is there, particularly when the Act specifies in no uncertain circumstances that, one, the circumstances mentioned should apply and that the office of deputy is vacant. The office of deputy is not vacant. And B, that the deputy mayor or deputy president is unavailable or unwilling to perform the functions of mayor. Again, B is not satisfied, and therefore the next section, which is the mayor or president or deputy will not be able to perform the functions of mayor, then council may appoint to a councillor to perform that function as the case requires. Now, those A and B are not fulfilled, and therefore, in all good consciousness, I could not agree with utilising what is an extraordinary provision in the Act in these circumstances. We do not have the ground reasons to act in my opinion. I also note, as per my questions, that the CEO does have the ultimate ability of undertaking that function. And really, when we're talking about functions, we're talking about extraordinary functions, maybe signing a letter or signing a contract. But as far as I'm aware, other councils have dealt with this as the case requires. They've dealt with it by simply having a special general meeting, simply getting council together to perform their role and deciding things as time comes. It feels like we're preemptively trying to, again, I don't know what to call it, whether to call it a deputy, Lord Mayor, or
I'm just going to jump in, Councillor.
With all respect, Lord Mayor, I think
No, Councillor, that's my meeting. I'm entitled to do this.
I'd like...
Yeah, no, you can finish. You can finish. I'm just going to jump in for a moment because I think the characterisation that I'm hearing is that this is something sinister. This is, in the event that the Deputy Lord Mayor is acting as the Lord Mayor, he's ill, he's away, he's on holidays, he has an accident, he can't attend an event because it's his daughter's birthday, any of the things that currently occur if this Lord Mayor is unable to do an event, that there is a secondary person that it goes to assist and to help fulfil that role. So I think suggestions that it is anything other than that is unfair to the chamber and unfair to your fellow elected members who met to discuss it at the most recent elected member engagement session. And it's important that I say that. And I'm putting that on the record because that needed to be said. Now, by all means, Councillor Gonsalves, feel free to return to your position speaking against the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. With all respect, I think you should reconsider those statements because while I've expressed goodwill, I don't feel like it's fair to characterise my
Councillor, I'll decide what
statements.
I do there. You've got this opportunity to continue to speak against, as you were doing, or not. It's your call.
And as I was saying, that I've put forward my arguments based on the legal and technical aspects. I do not feel like it is appropriate to characterise my statements in any unfair way, in any way that I'm not quite sure what you mean by a sinister approach. Did not use any form of...
Oh, Councillor, please. I'm not suggesting that you're being sinister. What I said was that the request to this person to step up and fulfil the roles of the deputy should not be seen as anything sinister. They would merely be doing what the Deputy Lord Mayor now does if the Lord Mayor is unable to fulfil their role.
I think, Lord Mayor, with respect, if you go back, you clearly said that the way I was portraying it was as if it was sinister.
Councillor, let's get on with it, please.
I am not portraying it as any sinister. I need to clarify the record that I am bringing up this issue as a matter of law and a matter of procedure. My microphone has just... that I'm bringing this issue as a... I think my microphone keeps flashing, but... Thanks. And it's important to say that while this council has a lot of goodwill with trying to figure out where we go, it's important that we don't just take preemptive decisions without the kind of advice and legal basis that I think is necessary for us to act. The act itself is very particular with the two circumstances that are required. I haven't seen any legal advice. This came up on an agenda briefing session and then dropped off and then didn't come back to the next agenda briefing session, but that came to this council meeting. And I don't feel like I have the confidence to vote in a way that is not informed by the law and is not informed by due reasoning and rationale, even if there is extraordinary circumstances that may warrant. And just on that, on the extraordinary circumstances that may or may not occur, I think it could be said that we could create, deputy positions or deputy reserve positions for a whole load of things. Any one of us could encounter adverse incidents. But I don't think we do. We deal with issues as times arise. We've managed to, and the city, over its long history, has managed to survive. And importantly, I think the goodwill that I show is that my fundamental belief in this council and my fellow councillors, that if anything adverse was to happen, or if anyone was unable to fulfil their role, that we as councillors would have enough goodwill to convene a special general meeting and get this council to work. I think that is my point. My voting no is a reflection that I believe this council can deal with any situation. And so therefore I'm not voting for this.
Thank you, Councillor Gonsalves. Councillor Bevan, for or against? You've already spoken, I'm afraid.
I have a question.
No, yes, okay, question.
Thank you. The councillor talks about the law and talks about, is there rationale there? Can I put it to governance? Is there rationale there to do what we are doing?
CEO, through you.
And is it lawful?
Governance.
Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, it is a lawful proposition.
Thank you, Alliance Manager Governance. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Doshi, you move the motion. Anything you wish to say? All right, let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour? And in the affirmative, Councillor Doshi, Councillor Bevan, Councillor Wellard, Councillor Gobbett, the Lord Mayor, the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Leeser and Councillor Coe. Your hands up. Sorry, I couldn't see. And Councillor Coe. And those against? Councillor Gonsalves. So that motion is passed 8-1. Item 17. Item 17. Committee reports. Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 25th of November 2024. 17.1 is the review of Council Policy 2.14 Risk Management. This item is on block. 17.2 results of the Audit and Risk Committee self-assessment, also on block. That brings us to item 18, motions of which notice has been given. None of those tonight. 19, matters for which the meeting may be closed. None of those tonight either. Which brings us to item 20. Urgent business. Moving to item 20, no items have been consented to being raised in accordance with clause 4.14 of the City of Perth Standing Orders Local Law. So that brings us to item 21, which is closure. Just before we close, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of all of the councillors and obviously the Lord Mayor of the City of Perth to wish not only our ratepayers but all of our community, the many visitors who have come into the city over the last 12 months, and especially those who are coming in presently to celebrate the Rio Tinto Christmas Lights Trail, the Christmas pageant last week, the Elizabeth Quay Fun Fair, fireworks in the city every Saturday night until Australia Day, and to all of those people who are demonstrating so well that hashtag Christmas lives here is very appropriate in the description of our City of Light, the City of Perth. It's been an outstanding year of growth and consolidation for our city. I want to thank the CEO, Michelle Reynolds, to you and your team. Thank you for the outstanding work in continuing to assist us in not only rebuilding our city, which is clearly a step that we've moved beyond with our evolution to excellence, but the reimagination of our city has taken full hold. And it's a joy to be able to wander around our city, see the great growth and progress, the many people coming into the city and the great advancements taking place. So to everyone in this chamber, everyone watching online and everybody who visits or is a part of our city, thank you for helping make our City of Perth the great place that it is. So I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, with a reminder, family-friendly fireworks at Elizabeth Quay at 8:30, followed by midnight fireworks at Elizabeth Quay, and still the rooftop fireworks across at Northbridge for those party people over there. And I now declare the ordinary council meeting closed at 7:03 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Could you all please rise for the Right Honourable the Lord Mayor of Perth, Mr Basil Zemplis.